I'm Casey Hott, and you're listening to Troy Holden on the VO Life.
This episode is sponsored by VOinbox.com, the only full-service marketing tool for established professional voice actors.
Hey, guess what? You have found it again. It is the VO Life, where we talk about voiceover, voice acting, whatever you like to call it. And first off, I want to welcome my co-host this week. Good to have him back. It's J. Rodney Turner.
Hey, Troy. Right down the street, brother.
Right down the street.
I know it's as hot as your place as it is at mine. That's one thing I like about living next door to you.
You know, we got lucky, though. It hasn't been that bad up until this week. I mean, we've had a little bit, but my
Last Thursday, it stopped raining last Thursday, and it hadn't rained since, and it's been 90 and better since then.
Yeah, and if I looked at it correctly, of course, they can't predict anything in this area, but next week it's supposed to be rainy again.
I keep telling people the best job in the world to have is a weatherman. You don't ever have to be right.
You got that right. They're terrible here.
And they just keep paying you.
Yeah. It just amazes me, and I have a fascination with it. I like to just watch it and see how far off they're going to be, and a lot of times I'm like, nah, it's not going to do that, and it doesn't.
Me too.
This week we're also joined by Jessica Mathison. Jessica's a voice actor, and she is a serial entrepreneur. Bless your heart, because I understand it. When you're bringing heart and strategy to everything you do, that's what she does. She did not plan on getting into voiceover until a road trip conversation with her son sparked the thought, I love to read, I enjoy audiobooks, I think I can do that. Now, that's one of the reasons I invited Jay Rodney, because you guys have this audiobook thing, and you can really enlighten us on some of it. But before doing this, she earned a degree in business administration, spent 2 decades building businesses, planning events, helping others do the same. Today, she blends both voiceover, business mentoring, and her longtime love of event planning into work that helps small business owners and fellow creatives grow with clarity and confidence. I have been to one of her talks at VO Atlanta. She knows her stuff. And when she's not recording or supporting other entrepreneurs, she's probably launching yet another business or talking herself out of doing that. That's good. I like that. I understand that.
Yeah.
I decided this year that I wanted to expand a little bit and do some on-camera stuff, and I started doing UGC. And now I have a closet half full of crap that I need to throw away because people send me stuff all the time.
Well, there's Facebook Marketplace,
Well, this week I did I can't remember the name of it, but it was hearing aids. And they wanted me to take some B-roll footage, like in a restaurant and acting like I could hear everything and talking. So yesterday, as bad as I felt, I went to town. I went up to top of the ridge. Rodney knows what I'm talking about. I talked to the waitress, told her what I was doing, got a table. She put me right in the middle where I could see all the people around me, and I just kind of set a little mini tripod up, and I'd nod my head and like, yeah, I can hear everything, And I sent it off, and this morning they sent back, oh, this is great. We love it. But it's funny how us old people can get work even if we don't mean to.
And one of these days your Waffle House will be finished.
Yes, they started on it again.
Finally.
They finally started on it. They got just some foundation work done, and it sat there for 2 months.
Every time I go through the Dairy Queen drive-thru, I think, poor Troy. It ain't open yet.
Yeah, they're getting there. And hopefully by the time it's open, I'll be over this stomach bug, and I'll be able to go up there and eat.
You'll be able to go up there and get what you need.
Yep. Well, Jessica, let's go back to your beginnings in voiceover and some of the first things that you did, and then kind of work us to where you are now and your focus of work.
Sure. So I got started at a pretty terrible time, actually, just prior to the pandemic. In 2019, I was running a small business that had a lot of seasonality to it. And so I was looking for something during those slow seasons to be able to continue working for myself while that other business had its slow season. Because trying to get a job with somebody else, you can't work in your own business. And
right.
Then you're kind of beholden to their time clock. And I didn't want to do that and then need to work my business. And so I was kind of searching for something, And then my son, who was an over-the-road truck driver at the time, needed me to get him to a rental car place to go, rent a car and pick up his new truck. And he was telling me about how he was listening to this really great audiobook when he was on the road, and Mom, you got to check it out. So I was like, oh, okay, great. We start listening to it, and then I'm like, wait a minute. I did have that thought, like in my bio. It's like, I like reading. I love audiobooks. I think I could do that. And so I started doing research to figure out how I could become an audiobook narrator, and made lots of wrong moves along the way, and started doing that. And then the pandemic hit in 2020. The world shut down, and I was on ACX doing the stuff, for Audible. And I think the number was something like there were 200,000 narrators on there at the beginning of the week, and by like the end of the week, there were 600,000. And so everybody who got furloughed or laid off or reduced hours and had an inkling to be an audiobook narrator flooded ACX. And all of a sudden, my work went, it just dwindled. So I thought, oh, okay, well, I probably need to figure out something to make it so that I'm more marketable. And I thought accents might be it because, there was a lot of work on there where they required accents, and I didn't feel like I did them well, not enough to sustain them through a book. And so I looked into accents, and I stumbled upon Gravy for the Brain, which at first I was like, is this thing real? Like, what a strange name for a business. Yeah. But it turns out, it has some roots, and turns out that the people that own it are a couple of guys from the UK, and that's a phrase that would make more sense if I was from there. So right. I ended up getting onto that and figuring out that there was this entire voiceover world that existed, and things that I hadn't even considered being voiceover were available to me to learn how to do, and I didn't have to be in LA. I didn't have to be in New York. I could be right where I was at and work remotely, and so I started studying, and I started venturing out into other things in voiceover, and started coaching privately. Got a demo made, put up a website, a really terrible first website because I didn't really know what I wanted to do for branding, which is hilarious considering I got my degree in business and marketing. But it's so different when you market yourself. When you're the product, it's a little different. And it's not like somebody's going, oh yeah, these are the things I like. And then all of a sudden you could brainstorm ideas with them, and, I don't know. So
it's something. You're mentioning branding in your background. How important is it really that you have a quote-unquote brand, or do you need time to develop that in voiceover to actually know what that could be?
I do think branding can be a moving target, especially if you're getting started in voiceover. You may think that you want to do a particular thing, but the market's going to tell you what they need from you. And the things that you get hired for over and over again may become what you do, even though maybe you aspire to do something a little different. So you may have to adjust your branding, if you're all about animation, but really it turns out that you're getting hired for, corporate narration all the time. That's a little bit of different look and feel, and than a corporate, a corporate website would look like. So.
Right.
Yeah.
I always tell people early on, be careful and don't brand yourself in a corner, because I almost did that using blue-collar voice of choice. It was a great thing for a while, but then all of a sudden I thought that's all people will think of when they hear my name. And in a way, maybe that's good, but that's not really all that I do. I do a lot of video games, a lot of character stuff, and blue-collar voice of choice doesn't say that. So I've literally, over the course of about 6 months, just eased it out of my branding. I kept the logo, but in the top where it had that, I just replaced it with voice actor.
Yeah.
And I'm just letting that cartoon be the brand thing or whatever with a big pair of glasses. And I'm like, just let that be it for now. And if it changes, like you said, it can evolve and change. What if something did happen, you start becoming a big promo voice or a big this voice or that voice. And I think then, it's great to run with that. But boy, early on, it's hard. I mean, it's really hard to know. Yeah. There's so much information coming at you that you should hire somebody to brand you and you should hire somebody for this and this and this. But, really what you ought to be spending all that money on is coaching and training.
Yeah, that's why I tell everybody that goes through the courses that I help Christy Bowen teach, especially on audiobooks, introduction to audiobooks, is research. Learning to research is probably your single best tool for any genre of voice acting. Number one, you need to research the genre. Number two, you need to research the coaches and the best coaches and how you figure out how to get a good coach. You need to research on, if you're super brand new, how do I create a recording place in my home so I don't have to go spend money at a studio? How do I create one, and who is out there that might be able to help me do that? And then you've got to research really what kind of coaches are out there. And then when you find a decent coach, is that coach going to be able to help you find the work? So you have to do your research on that, because I've had coaches that can't help you find work. They can help you coach, and then they can help you spend on a demo. And then you say, where do I find the work for this genre? And then they just look at you and go, well, you just got to keep doing research. No, I want a coach like all my audiobook coaches who can say, this is the person you call at this publishing house. This is their email address. You tell them I sent you. That's the kind of coach I'm looking for. You may not be able to find that in every genre, but if you do your research, you will be able to find coaches that will get you closer to the target. And then you have to do what Troy does and everybody else does. You have to actually do the work, which is finding the work. With audiobooks, and Troy and I have both been in this bag all our lives. For me, I worked for probably the first 2 years trying not to be who I really am. And I finally had somebody say, don't do that.
Yep.
Just be who you are and embrace it first. It's a lot like people that during the pandemic would say, hey, I want to just have this as a side hustle. Well, okay. But if you want to have it as a really good side hustle, at the very beginning, probably for the first 2 or 3 years, you have to at least behave as if it's your only job. Because once you get it and establish it, well, then you can make it a side hustle.
Sure.
People ask me how busy I am. I tell them I'm as busy as I want to be. Now, it wasn't so when I first started. I wasn't near as busy as I wanted to be. But now I am. I'm as busy as I'd like to be. And that's the way I want to keep it. There are days I'd like to be busier, so I can make myself busier. And there are days I want to be less busy, so I can say, I'm not going to work today. And that's the beauty of a lot of what we do, all of us do. And I think a lot of people out there need to know that you have to make it a business. And then once you get established a really decent, working, successful business, now you can pare yourself down and say, I'm not going to take that job, or I'm not going to take this job, but I will take those jobs, and I will take that job, and this is who I am. My branding is very much surrounding my sound and all the cowboy work I do and all the westerns I do. But I still get cast in a lot of mystery thrillers and a lot of suspense. As I've told to the audience before when I've been on Troy's podcast, I have one author in Bushy Creek, Tennessee, just east of here, who writes specifically for me a genre called Southern Fried Horror. And it's all, coming of age teenage kids in fictional Tennessee towns, and it's all centered around something spooky, and it's very, very cool work. And and between September and November every year through ACX, I get these giant checks because everybody wants to buy all these horror books that he writes, and it can be a cool thing, but you have to do your research. You must. You must.
Yeah, true. So, Jessica, let's talk about the things that you do outside of voiceover that are helping people with their business, because I know that's a part of your business.
Yep,
and
absolutely.
I want you to have the opportunity, especially here, because we have a lot of people that listen that are, you know, a lot of fairly new people. Maybe they've only been at it 2 years, 3 years. They might be at a point where they're needing to grow some things. What are some of the services you do to help them out?
Sure. So I help with business consulting and business coaching kind of stuff. And I waited a bit before I put that shingle out there because I know that there is quite a bit of distrust in the voiceover industry for some of the people that will go out and say, you know, you want to get rich quick, you know, that sort of thing. And they feel like they're just having their money taken. And so even when I entered the voiceover industry, and I had already been consulting with small businesses for a while, I didn't put my shingle out there until I made sure that I had a really good understanding of the voiceover industry, and was starting to gain that sort of trust and with peers and people in the industry, so that they could trust me. I mean, even if I did something great for them in business, I don't want somebody to call me a hack, you know, and that's not what I'm trying to do. So, I waited. It wasn't until probably 2 years now that I started to kind of put it out there and I started speaking and putting information out there, trying to build up some things on social media, although that's kind of fallen a little bit and I need to be more consistent. To help people out, give people information about like ways that you can grow your business, or even just the idea, like Rodney said, you have to think of this as a business. And a lot of folks, shockingly, don't. They go, oh, well, you know, I have it. I just doing this on the side or whatever. And they don't treat it as a business and maybe don't want to face the idea that regardless, it's a business and you should treat it as such. And it doesn't have to be scary. It doesn't have to be, you know, where you have a whole bunch of things that are overwhelming. You can just figure out what it is that you want to accomplish. You can break it down into smaller tasks and you can do them one little bite at a time, which is what I ended up kind of calling the program, which is Bite-Sized Business Builder. So I created I originally thought I was going to do sort of a master class, and I did these packets for the master class, and it turned into a workbook that you can do, which gives you something to focus on each month and some worksheets that you can fill out, kind of going back to the idea of, you know, when we were in elementary school and we were trying to learn concepts and get ideas down and do different things, we would fill out these worksheets. And then when we got to be adults, all of a sudden we had blank notebooks and we had to figure all this stuff out for ourselves and try to digest it all. So we went back a little bit, you know, and had some worksheets to help solidify some of that. That
adulting thing doesn't go over real good all the time.
Yeah, it can be hard.
Yeah.
It can be hard. I like the concept of bite size and the workbook. That all makes perfect sense, because what we all do, I think, we get overloaded with the big picture and we're trying to do everything. And you know, in this industry, for most of us who are really trying to make a living, it is, you know, you're juggling so many freaking things. And if you don't somehow bite-size these systems to where you have, you know, I know everybody invoices different and wants to pay different. And I need to know all of these different apps, because it seems like every time you pick up a new client, they go, oh, well, we use Bill, or we use this, or we use that. And you're constantly having to pick up a little knowledge of that, but you have to know how to consolidate all of that into your accounting and make it work for you. And then there is to social media or not to social media.
Oh, man.
You know, does it help or does it matter? You know, well, if you're just out there blasting information to other voice actors, what does it matter? And I believe that for a long time, but I also believe on the other side, it can show your knowledge and ability in the industry, because you are recognized by your peers and they do believe in you and trust you and think you are a legitimate resource. And, you know, you do have a podcast with 200 episodes. So they might go, maybe that guy is a legitimate voice actor.
Yeah,
he's got all that going on. You never know.
I absolutely agree with you. And I think more important than anything else that a lot of people don't talk about is being kind and professional on social media.
Yes.
especially new people. I started a podcast in 2018 called Audiobook Narration for Beginners. I did it simply because I watched beginners who would come on social media and just ask a simple question like, so how do you get started? And then some of the more professional narrators would just absolutely blast them into nowhere because they didn't know how to use the Facebook search function to ask the same question that's been asked by the 418 new people before them.
Yep.
And I thought, man, somebody needs to... And I compiled a whole bunch of the questions that all the new people asked. And when I started my podcast and I'd reached out to narrators, those are the questions I asked. So, and now they're just all free sitting on my website. So anybody wants to go look at them, they can just go download them and listen to them and hear how golden voices, Hall of Fame narrators, how they did all their starting, how they did everything. And it starts out with being kind on social media. And I tell people, and this is sometimes controversial, if you're going to have a Facebook or social media site that's about your business, keep it about your business. Don't mix your politics and your personal home stuff and all that other stuff, because if you got high drama and you end up becoming the housewives of Middle Tennessee, nobody wants to listen to that. Nobody wants to watch that. And I tell new narrators all the time, don't say anything negative about anybody you don't want to hear anything negative about, because I don't care who you think you're talking to. You blast some author because their book wasn't edited properly and they had some of the wrong English or spelled wrong words or something like that. That author's going to find out, and they're not going to want to use you anymore. And worse, the publisher's going to find out you're bad-mouthing one of their clients, and they're not going to use you anymore.
Right.
So you have to keep all the things that you have to keep in mind. You got to keep them in mind so that you remember this is business, and I have to behave professionally because I want to appear professional, even if you're just even if you're just doing it for to be behaving properly, and because for some people it's a chore. And some of us that grew up getting taken to the woodshed, it's a lot easier for us to behave.
That's right.
We know
better. Mom and Daddy both swing the belt or the fly swatter. We know all about that.
Just thinking about it, my behind's starting to get warm.
And there's been some people over the last few years who I like to call them the shell answer man. Every post that comes up in almost every group, they're the first person to comment and reply, and then they get mad if somebody doesn't agree with them. And I'm like, why are you doing that? It's just, who's got time for that? It's kind of crazy. Just be a good person all the way around, and it really does pay off. This morning, I have to do, hopefully I'm going to be up to doing it this afternoon. I've got a lot of phone system stuff to do for a bunch of Bobcat dealers in Texas. And they had a thing in there, and they always put some history stuff in there, like, hey, did you know at the battle or whatever? So they had a town in there, and I think it was like L.A. something, and it was Jinto. So I go to Youglish, and I listened to 7 videos, and 3 of them said La Jinto, and the other said La Jinto. And I said, well, I still don't know which way it is. So I called him up, and I said, I'm sorry to bother you, and I hate to ask, but it's in the copy about 10 times, and I don't want to have to go back and fix it if I'm wrong. So do you guys have a preference of how that's said? She said, oh, it's La Jinto. She said, now the Spanish, they say La Jinto or whatever, but she said, no, it's Texas. We use the J. I said, that's all I want to know.
So
all I want to know.
Let me give you a quick audiobook narrator cheat.
Yep.
Pick up the phone and call the Chamber of Commerce or call the local library in that town, and that librarian will tell you everything you need to know about how that's supposed to be pronounced, and it will be done properly.
That sounds
every single time.
Like a
librarians know everything.
Yeah, that's neat.
But
neat.
you know, what you did there is great because, I mean, yes, you don't want to go to your client and say, I'm sorry, I can't do any research on my own. Can you please hold my hand?
Right.
But it's like, you did try to do some research.
Exactly.
You did find that there was some conflicting information, and you went back and said, hey, I want to make sure I do it right. That goes a long way. That's great customer service.
Oh, yeah. I'm in the middle of an audiobook right now. I'm going to start it next month. It's a 25-hour Western, and it's got French in it. And I know that the author just went to Google Translate and went to the English to French, typed into English, and got the French pronunciation out the other side, and just plugged and placed it. And I went to a French speaker, a native French speaker that I know, a narrator friend, I think out in California, and I said, okay, here's another list for me. Can you help me with that? And she called me and said, where are you getting this? And I said, well, I got it right off the page of the manuscript. She said, well, tell me what they think they're saying. I said, okay. So I was able to pull all that out and tell her exactly what they're saying. And now she's creating she's creating MP3 files for me so I can listen to her say it slowly, then say it in normal speed. She says it really slowly again, and then I'll be able to do that. But you got to be able to do your own research.
Right.
I got another one. I run into this all the time with Westerns. Cheyenne, Lakota, Crow. You've got to find your resources and figure out how to get it done. And then you cannot be afraid to say, I'm sorry, but I just can't find this anywhere. Can you help me? And people will help. I mean, it's but you can't hide like you don't, or act like you know when you don't. That's just
don't
silly.
guess. That's always
don't ever
never
guess.
goes in your favor.
I
was doing.
right.
And I mentioned I was a little under the weather, and I did an audition yesterday that had a word in it that I was having trouble with, and I went back and I found the pronunciation. I listened to it about 6-7 times. Okay, I got it. I did the hooked on phonics and broke it out. And when I got back to it, and I fixed it. So when I did the edit on it before I sent it, because I came up on the word and didn't know I didn't know it was in there. It was kind of somewhat of a cold read, and it was in about 5 lines down. And then I hit that word and I went, So I just stopped. I went and did the thing. Then I came back and finished it. Well, when I did the edit, I took out where I said it wrong, but I left in the And I didn't know this until they shortlisted me. And I thought, I got shortlisted on that. I was kind of surprised. And I played it back and I went, oh, my God, I can't believe I left that. But I was not myself, I wasn't on my game because I was under the weather. But they may have laughed about it, They may have thought, oh, poor guy, he couldn't say it either. I don't know. You just never know. But, it's you just got to ask sometimes. But anyway. Now, Jessica, what about some interesting projects you've worked on? Sometimes, we work on stuff and we're really proud of it. And then there's things we work on. It's the opposite. It's like, I can't believe I did that. So
that's why you give yourself a pseudonym.
I wish. Like I have one that I haven't really had felt the need to use. But like some of the stuff when I got started, where I made all those mistakes on ACX, where I found the books and I was so excited because like I was getting all of these books, and then I started to notice that they were translated really poorly, and and then there's some of that stuff, and they're not going to go away for 7 years, or if ACX decides to pull them down, which I wish some of those were off of there because they're really awful, but there they are. And I'm the first one to say it. Like, I made all the mistakes. I did the internet research. When you get started in this, unless you have somebody who leads you into it, you don't know where to learn what you don't know. And so sometimes, you've obviously whatever is well SEO'd or whatever is hitting the algorithm is what you're going to see. And sometimes that's not always the best, right? So, Yeah, so there is definitely some of the stuff on ACX that I wish was not there, but it is, and it's life lessons. And then there's some other stuff that I do that I wish I could get some cool recordings of. Like I got to do some e-learning work for Cummins, and I'm like, I don't have like something on my website where I could be like, look at this. I have their logo, but it'd be really cool if I could have an example of that. But it's internal, so all I can say is I worked for them.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of that stuff's hard to get. My embarrassing ones are all on YouTube, and they'll be out there forever. I did a boxing channel for a while, and I did this other one. The very first one I did was called Tech Dojo, and every week, here's your top 10 Amazon buys for this, or accessories for your new Tesla, and blah, 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 blah. And they're all so announcery and, just like they would be on there because that's what they are. But out of those 4,000 or so videos I narrated, boy, did I get good at editing. I got better at reading. I got better at my hand-eye coordination. I mean, it really taught me a lot. So I hate that they're out there because some of them are probably not that great. But my most embarrassing thing was the first thing I ever tried to record as a voice actor. And I was just learning. I wasn't trying to work or anything. I was trying to teach myself. And I thought, how in the world do people do this? Because I can't read a whole 30-second thing and not make a mistake. So I'd have to stop. And I was so dumb, I didn't know I could edit. I'd just start over and read the whole thing again. And I kept doing it and kept doing it and kept doing it. And there again, as dumb as that was, it helped me learn, to get my eye and brain and mouth coordinated. But then all of a sudden I run across a video of somebody, with a clicker, and they're clicking it and they edit it out. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute, do that again. Let me see how you did that. And then I started doing it. But my favorite story of all of it is I put together, like a lot of people did, a little PVC booth. And it was like a 4x4, and it wasn't even regular VO stuff in there. And I was so proud of it. I got it set up, and tomorrow night I get home, I'm going to get in there and record something. And I came in, and my cats had got on it and just collapsed it, and it was just flat on the floor when I got home. I said, I probably shouldn't even do this. This is crazy. But it's just funny, the stories you can have.
Yep.
But
my first booth was made out of we had an area in the place. We had an old fishing lodge with the space downstairs was like the commercial space, and then we lived upstairs, and so we had like this corner of a room, and we had all of these moving blankets that we'd purchased, but then all of this really old drapery from like a hotel or something that was fugly. Mm-hmm. Fugly, like not even just ugly. And it was. But it made great sound dampening,
Yeah.
And so
those old curtains in those hotels were thick.
Oh yeah, they were the kind that
Big,
had like the actual drapery hooks and
made out of corduroy.
To the ceiling was like wooden, so we just stapled them with industrial staples and stuff. And yeah, it was great. I mean, and my first setup that I had was an Amazon special, where it came with the mic and the arm and the cords and the little mixer box that's questionable,
Yeah.
but it was XLR,
right.
We've all been through it.
Yeah.
We've all been through it.
Yeah, it was fun to learn it all. I mean, I'm still I'm the worst, and now that I'm doing video, I've become a video tech junkie. I've tried, I love my iPhone for doing all this stuff. But then if you want to use the rear-facing camera, you can't see yourself. Well, now they've come up with monitors that magnetically attach to the back of the camera. They work okay. But then I figured out, you can literally wire into your phone into a big monitor. And so I bought a rolling table, kind of like they have at a hospital, but it's like a laptop table.
Oh yeah.
And I put these two clamp-on bars on the side that can hold a light, camera, whatever you want to put on it. So anywhere I'm in the house filming, I put the laptop on there. Everything's there. I roll it to wherever. If they want a kitchen scene, a den scene, I can even carry it outside. And that is so daggum handy for that kind of thing. So I don't have to reset everything up. And then I wanted not a GoPro, but a similar. I think there's one called an Action 5 or whatever DJ Osmo makes. And I'm looking at those. I hadn't dropped the money on that yet. But the ability to film outside and do stuff that's action oriented doing UGC is a big selling point. And then the other thing is being older, because they target our age group.
Sure.
You know, they're looking at people in their 50s, 60s, 70s because they're sitting home, they're watching this stuff, or they're scrolling. And my mother still does it out of catalogs. She gets a stack every week in the mail, you know, the clothing and gadgets, and she's always buying stuff out of there. Or she'll call me and say, "Can I get that on Amazon? And, you know, can you just get it for me?" And so I understand what they're targeting, but it's a big market. But I'm only dealing with it through one resource. But yesterday I found out there's a lot of production companies and agencies that do UGC.
Yeah.
So I think I'm going to branch into that. Now that I've learned it, I understand the terminology. When I first started, the guy goes, "How many hooks and CTAs do I get?" And I said, "How many you need?" Because I didn't know what he was talking about, you know. And then right when we got through talking, I go look all this up, you know. And that was like my first job. But it's like starting over in voiceover again, but I've already got the audio knowledge and all, so it really made a difference.
That's one of those areas I want to get into too, actually. And as a matter of fact, like, I started to realize this was an kind of an untapped, fairly untapped area for voice actors. When Alice Everdeen talked about it, like, and had a little course on it and stuff like that. And then I had seen, I think it was Mark Scott that interviewed, oh shoot. I just forgot who he interviewed. Anyway, he interviewed
I just
a mom and
recently heard
daughter that are doing UGC, and I'm like, oh, this is about to blow up. I better look into this sooner than later. But in fact, the conference that I'm hosting next year, I have somebody coming to talk about UGC, because I feel like even next year, it's going to be relatively untapped compared to where it could be. So it's a good thing for people to learn.
Yeah, the only thing that worries me right now in the beginning of it is, and the rates aren't bad for the time you put into it, but you don't really know what the usage is. You know, they could be running it, and you really have to ask, because they could be running it on, you know, as a company thing, and they do paid promotions on TikTok or Facebook or wherever they put a lot of it. And you kind of have to tap dance with that, because most of these guys, well, my budget's only $300 or my budget's only $600 or whatever it is. And as long as you can, just like in VO, as long as you can hold them, you know, to some terms, it works out pretty good. But a lot of this stuff that's going on with, whether it's through Fiverr or Upwork or wherever some of that work comes from, you just got to be careful with these overseas buyers. There's a lot of U.S. business, and that's what I'm trying to target. But occasionally I'll get the guy overseas, and I actually had one yesterday that wanted me to do a truck cover. He's going to send me a $300 truck cover. It's made in the USA. It's a USA company, but he was in China, and I just, you know, I'm like, are they? I can't. Sometimes I wonder.
It's hard to connect.
Yeah, or is he just is he the one who started the business and he set it up over here? Super nice guy, and he had a really really nice product, and we got it worked out. But a lot of them are just like, we don't really have a script. You just say what you want to say.
Yeah,
and that's kind of different too. But but it's fun.
Yeah,
it's
and that's what they're trying to capture, too.
Very
like, they don't want the scripted. They want it to seem, even though they've hired you to do this, they want you to be like a real person, because they're finding that they're having more success with marketing with this user-generated content compared to their standard.
But it's also cheaper for them to hire men off the street than it is to hire a professional actor. Yeah,
absolutely.
It's also less expensive for them.
Yeah, and people are, we're used to seeing the ads, and we, either quickly flip through them, but every now and then something will pop up and I go, oh, that's neat. And I'll watch it. It's
and then
not
all of a sudden,
often,
that's your whole feed.
But I get hooked, and I have also been guilty of my wife saying, did you order something else? Yeah.
Yep.
I've tried to upgrade all of the strip outlets in the house because all those used to go to the hardware store and buy and everything. None of them have surge protection. They don't have any USBs in them.
Right.
And Anchor started coming out with these really nice flat ones, and the plugs are further apart, and you can get stuff in easier. So next thing I know, there's like 6 of them coming in here, and she's like, "What are you doing?" I said, "Wait till I put this in there, and you'll see."
Yeah.
And she's like, "That is nice. That is nice."
Yeah, my wife went
trust
around
the
one
process.
day and she got these packages, and I thought, "What are you buying?" Well, she opened them up, and there's these little, I guess you call them a power tower. They sit on the end table, and they have a electrical outlet. They have USB.
Yep.
They have USB-C. They have USB. I mean, all the different connections. And I thought, wow, that's pretty cool.
It is pretty neat. I mean, and those little things these days, those things matter because I'm noticing, and you guys may notice this too, I'm seeing almost everything going to USB-C now. And so it's either A to C or C to C.
Or lightning, or the lightning connection.
And I would love it if they standardized to one of them.
Oh, no, they're not going to standardize.
No,
There's no competition in standardization.
That's true.
At one point, there was
And then
something that said everything had to go.
I even got one of these. Have you seen these ergonomic mouse?
Oh, yeah, the mouse.
Yeah.
Right.
I hadn't hooked it up yet. I just had it sitting up here, and I wanted to put my hand on it a few days because I got trigger thumb. And I am noticing that is a rested position.
Right.
And when you put your hand on the other one, you're twisting your arm.
Just a little, yeah.
Just a little. And I think that's going to work. So I thought before I turn it on, I want to just play with it for a day or two, and then I can say I'll put it in the box and return it or whatever. But, yeah, I think I'll keep it. Not that I like to buy gadgets, but I do.
But
I do.
But you're going
I
to
don't
be
like
like
to
my
say
mother-in-law.
it, but I like
My
to do
mother-in-law,
it.
I told my mother-in-law, if you pass away, they're going to be laying people off at QVC and at the Home Shopping Network. 'Cause you're not going to be here, but they're going to have suddenly unemployment's going way up.
Between my bad habit and the UGC stuff coming, my post our mailman, which they bring most of the Amazon, the mail guys do, but I tell you, some days I know he hates us.
I know. Well, you'll get over it.
Yeah. Hey, I used to haul that mail, so that's
right.
what pays the bills.
That's
it's not
right.
that bad a thing. Not that bad a thing. Jessica, you had also asked me about, and we are recording today on Riverside.
Yeah.
Riverside is, I used to use it, and it became glitchy. And this was early on, like 3 years ago. And then I went to Zencaster for a while. It was kind of glitchy, and I said, you know what? I've got a paid Zoom account. The audio's pretty good on Zoom, and I went back to Zoom. Now I'm using Riverside again because, sadly, all of the AI updates, they will generate all your short clips for you. They'll generate the translation or whatever of the script if you want to post that on your podcast and everything. I'm not seeing issues with it anymore. And here's the other thing I like. Even though Rodney and I may hear what we think is you cutting out, when I go to pick up the recordings, it's not cut out.
Nice.
There's no glitching. The video is caught up. And every now and then, all of us, we may see video freezing or something going on, but it doesn't affect the video or audio that when you download it. This is going directly into their systems in the cloud, so it never misses a beat.
That's awesome.
And there's a little counter up there that says, you're at 99% upload rate, and that lets you know it's not missing a beat.
That's great.
So far, I'm hooked on it. They gave me 3 months free to try it at the pro level, and I'm just going to try it. But by having people on, I like it.
Yeah.
It's easy to coordinate. It does a good job. It will even go in and mix the audio, take out noises, stuff, level it. And it's close enough that a couple of episodes, I've just used it. I didn't even touch it. I
That's
just
cool.
dumped it in there and went with it.
Yeah.
So it's a time saver is what
That's
it really
cool.
is. And that's one thing I'm always looking for. Anywhere I can pick up an hour or two a week where I don't have to sit in here. And I mean, I'd rather be in here making money if I'm going to be in here.
Than doing this
and
stuff.
then I love I'd like to have that hour I wasted editing and doing all that to go outside, and get out of here.
Yeah.
So I like it. So
that's cool. I was, like I had
it
mentioned,
is. It's a good
I had a
product.
podcast before with a co-host, and that kind of came to its natural conclusion. But like, I keep thinking that I want to put something together, but I would rather it be something like this, where it's sort of a roundtable discussion about whatever the topic is, rather than having something that I have to go in and I have to do a bunch of editing. Like, let's go live, then the live gets reposted or something, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I like that idea. I know there's one of the casting agents does that. I think it's Voicecaster, and I listen to their stuff. And it's interesting. I mean, you can kind of tell they're all in different places by the audio, but they just,
right? Yeah.
however it goes, they just put it out, you know, and it's always good information. And I like the natural, off the cuff, whatever conversation stuff. I mean, it's more, it's just like we're talking about UGC. It's real, it's authentic. You get what you hear, and that's it. Just not a whole lot to it. I really like the fact that you are blending your previous with VO. I think that's a neat thing because I think the business needs it. To me, and we were talking about coaching, there's a lot of coaches. Yeah. And there's a lot of good coaches. And there's a lot of I don't know if they are good coaches because I've not been to some of them. But what I saw this morning on a TikTok post from one of my favorite people, Mandy Fisher, who said there are so many people overpaying and spending all this money and going to all this coaching, and all they're doing is losing their authenticity because they're trying so hard to be something they're not. Exactly what we talked about earlier. At what point, and this is for both of you guys, at what point did you just decide it's got to be me? I think I'm where I need to be. Maybe you never stop coaching. I mean, I still every now and then want to go to a workshop and pick up something to make sure, because I lose my edge sometimes, and I know when I lose it. But when did the realization hit you that I don't have to sound like these other people, Jessica?
Well, I think I've always kind of thought that I'm probably gonna be different. I was actually kind of surprised to hear that I was like my voice had a similar, like not a similar voice print, but like I'm in a similar group as other people. So like growing up, people made fun of my voice. People actually made fun of my voice, and so for me to be voice acting is like, that's not anything that was on my radar, and I wasn't the theater kid or whatever. But like I went into it kind of blindly and foolishly and was like, I know how to read well. I can read out loud well. I have narrated, things like I have had to give speeches or narrate books or whatever for my kids, and I always did just fine. And so I always thought, okay, I've got this skill down. So I was thinking in terms of narrator and not thinking in terms of actor. I went right into it. And then I realized I should get coaching. Luckily, I had some natural ability and some affinity for it where I was okay, but like I didn't get to take it to a new level until I got that coaching. And then to kind of learn that, so I just always was like that I am who I am and take it or leave it, and then I have to sort of figure out how to make sure that I'm giving clients what they're asking for or what they need. Sometimes they don't know what they need. They ask for something, and what they're actually asking for is different than what they actually want, that sort of thing, and learning that. So I sort of went in all the way blindly. And
so coaching
dumbly.
for you sounds like it was more of the technicalities, maybe somewhat.
Yeah.
And that was how I felt. It was more of, when the first thing that I went to early on about breaking down commercial scripts, I was, I thought, wait a minute, there's 3 scene changes in 15-second spots sometime, and you've got to change with that, and you've got to, all of that opened my eyes a lot. And I'll never forget the first time that I read something after I'd been through some of that, and I played it back and listened to it. I thought, wow, that's way different than what I've been doing, because for me it was all just read it, rip and read. And then when I started delving into that is when things changed for me. Yep. Now, Rodney, what about you? What was the big turning point?
my story I've told on here before. I don't want to bore anybody, but, for 30 years I was an air traffic controller and heard pilots all the time tell me, oh, man, you got a cool voice. So because of the federal requirement to retire at the age of 56, I knew the exact day that I would be done, which coincidentally for me was Halloween of 2013.
Nice.
So I knew, going in, because I can do math, how long I needed to try to figure something out before I retired, because I knew I wasn't going to just sit at home on the farm doing nothing at 56. Here I am, 11 years later at 67, and I'm loving being retired. And I also love doing what I'm doing. But in 2015, I went to VO Atlanta. It was my second VO Atlanta, I think. And I met Celia Siegel, and I sat down with her, had a private session with her, and she said, how do you think I can help you? And I said, well, I don't know if you can help me. I said, here's my problem. I was born like this. I said, my mom and daddy worked real hard on this voice for me in early 1957, and, it's the only voice I've got, and everybody in the industry is telling me I need to sound like something different. Is there a place for me, or do I need to just wrap it up? And she just smiled real big and said, no, you just need to be who you are, and embrace that. And I worked with her following that VO Atlanta for probably 5 or 6 months on a branding effort, and changed my website and basically just embraced what I wanted to do, and taking the advice of my audiobook coaches, which was, audition for the work you want to get. And, I've wanted to be a cowboy all my life, being a city boy growing up in the city. I've always, John Wayne, Clint Eastwood, they were my heroes. I never forget my mom and dad taking me to see Fistful of Dollars when it first opened up. And Mom being absolutely horrified that they had the violence that was in it, that she didn't know it was in it. She thought it was just another cowboy movie. And I was lucky enough to be on the other side of, Dad was in between us, so she couldn't reach me to cover eyes. And I was just in awe. Oh man, they're showing blood. They're killing people. This is great. I think I was 8 or 9 at the time. So, it was the best thing in the world for me. Cowboys just was where I was. And Dad had a lot of cowboy books. He loved Zane Grey. He loved Louis L'Amour. So I got to read all those growing up. And that's where my wheelhouse is. Now, like you said, Troy, there's still opportunity to grow. So when I think about doing something else, I go back to the beginning. I do my research. I find my coaches. I do what I want to do. So I'm coaching now with a guy to do commercial work, and I've been working probably since February to try to really improve my commercial reads where they don't sound like just 30-second audiobooks, all my reads sound like that. They sound just like a 30-second audiobook, and that's great if that's what you want, but nobody wants that. At least so far, no one's hired me to do that. So, I'm learning that, breaking down the copy, that here are how they're broken down, and there can be 3 or 4 different scenes in one 30-second copy, and you have to take take it from that 60,000 foot view and down into down into where it needs to be, so you can see exactly who you are in the copy. Are you the star, or are you just a supporting role? Those kind of things. So I love learning new stuff, but I am convinced that the work that is yours is going to come to you. Yes. If you just continue to be diligent and do your research and do your work and be professional and, do the work of finding the work, and your work's going to come to you. There's still plenty of work out there for all of us. We don't all get to be, Mark Ryder or others that are, have been in the business for a good long while and are doing great at everything they do. But they still have struggles too. They're not getting everything. They're being told no thanks as well. So, to me, it's not a competition.
Right.
I compete with myself more than I compete with anybody else.
Exactly.
That's it.
And if I know that I'm delivering the best I can deliver, that's what I do. So on behalf of the one agent I have, when I get a copy that I know is not me, I don't waste her time. I don't waste her time or the client's time trying to send in something because, they wanted the 13-year-old Mexican girl. Well, that ain't me. So there's no reason for me to try to be that. That's just silly. Now, I'll have to do that in an audiobook if there's a 13-year-old Mexican girl in a cowboy book and, she has a couple of lines. Well, sure, I can do that. But, not trying to sell something for 15 or 30 seconds. That's just silly. So, you have to know your role. You have to know your point of view. And you have to be able to give the client what they want. And you also have to know your limitations. So,
Yes.
I've learned a lot of that stuff. And which is, why I always try to help new folks because I don't want them to make the mistakes I made. I don't want them to struggle like I did because from 2008 until I met Celia in 2015, I really feel like I spun my wheels for 7 years. Now, granted, I had a great job. I wasn't worried about my ends meeting. And I had, I wouldn't trade that job in for the world. And of course, over the last year, all the struggles we've had, people have asked me if I'm ready to go back. And I said, yeah, I could go back tomorrow. But, they don't want me back. I promise you they don't want this old guy's back, because I promise you that once you're gone from that job for a year, you've probably forgotten more than you'll remember. So it's not one of those things you want an old guy at. That's why the age is 56, Shuffle on along there, Grandpa, and just go on back go onto the porch and find yourself something else to do. So I'm happy being an audiobook narrator and a voice actor and, doing those things. And, I'll relive that with buddies and, we'll lie to each other about how great we were and that kind of thing. So that's kind of where I am with who I am.
I'm right there with you. I had a former coworker, and I've been out of automotive a little over 3 years now, I guess. And I had a former coworker call me, and he said, "Hey, you remember right before you left last place I was at and all the racking you guys put up?" Yeah, he said, "Do you remember who the vendor was and what brand rack that was?" I said, "Nope." I have no clue. And why are you calling me and asking me
why
that?
Why are you calling me?
Yeah, I just hadn't heard from somebody in 3 years, and they want to ask you something like that. I don't know. You never know. Hey, we're closing in on an hour, so I want to give you guys opportunity to tell everybody how all the listeners can find you if they want to talk to you. And I know, Rodney, you've been on before, but let's remind them again about your audiobook stuff that you do as far as teaching and stuff that you do with Christy.
The simplest way to do it is just you can text me at my cell number, 615-509-8360. I'm in the Central Time Zone, so if you wake me up, I probably won't respond. But feel free to text me. I don't cost nothing to ask a question about audiobooks. I don't ever charge anybody any of that stuff. If you want to do the intro to audiobook class through Tennessee Voiceover Studios, Christy Bowen, you can just look up Christy Bowen and you can connect through her, or you can just go to my website, which is www.jrodneyturner.com, and you can hit a contact button and reach out to me there through my email.
There you go. Jessica, same with you. Let us know, your socials or whatever so people can find you.
Okay. I wasn't so lucky on the socials to be able to get the same social for everything. So the best way to go and find my socials is to go to my website where there's a nice little button that'll take you right to them. So it's jessicamathison.com.
Right on.
And there's also a contact form if you want to contact me. My email is also listed there, which is jessica@jessicamathison.com. And like J. Rodney, I also offer, consultations and stuff like that to be able to talk with folks about any questions that they might have. I don't expect people to just to go, here's some money and you're going to coach me for an hour. No, let's have a conversation and let's see if that makes sense for you. So
that's right. You got to be a fit. Whether it is a performance coach, a business coach, or whatever it is, you need to be a fit with that person, and you need to have the confidence in them before you want to pay them. If somebody's not offering some free time, I'm getting kind of suspicious.
Absolutely.
A lot of times, it kind of makes me wonder. I want to thank you both for taking time out of your schedules to join us. Rodney, I guess you're back to the heat. I'm probably not going to get in it yet. I'm going to wait another day.
First. I'll eat lunch first, then I'll get back at it.
There you go.
I got a mow today, too, so I got stuff
There you go. My mower is in Gallatin having the deck rebuilt, so I'm hoping he gets it done because I had to mow with my finishing mower and my 30-horse tractor, and that's
no fun.
I can't get up against anything. It was just like I had to weed eat for 6 hours when I got done. Not fun. But I thank you both so much for dropping in.
Anytime,
and hey, we thank all our listeners for being here, too, and also thanks to Jonathan Grant and VO Inbox for being our wonderful sponsor. We'll see you again soon on the VO Life.
And that's another episode of the VO Life. Thanks for dropping in and hanging on. The VO Life was brought to you by voinbox.com.
The marketing tool that gives you back something others don't. Make an investment in your marketing that not only cultivates clients but gives you back time.
If you are a professional voice actor and you need to up your direct email marketing game, VO Inbox might be for you.
Reach out to Troy in an email to get 25 leads free with your paid subscription. Send that email to troy@troyholdenvoices.com.
Need to talk about building your VO business? You can schedule time with Troy on his website in half-hour or full-hour sessions. There's even a free 15-minute consult available, all on the website at troyholdenvoices.com.
Thanks for being here, and join us again next week on the VO Life.
Okay, that's enough talking. Can we hear some samples now? Oh boy, here we go again.